The National Water Resources Master Plan estimates that Nigeria has about 3.14 million hectares of irrigable land, out of which over 130,000 hectares have been developed. This is against the backdrop of reports that the river basin authorities have performed woefully. However, the federal government is making effort to change that narrative. My guest on this week's episode is the Minister of Water Resources, and he talks about plans to revamp the nation's river basin development authorities. Hello there, welcome to Dateline Abuja. I'm Gloria Umezuki. 50 local divers are receiving training to be first responders and reduce casualties from flood-related cases. We have a report on the proactive steps taken by the Federal Capital Territory Emergency Management Agency to ensure that residents of the nation's capital do not suffer a fatality in the event of any flood. In our interview segment, we'll be looking at plans to revamp the water resources sector. But first, what are the stories that made headlines within the week in the nation's capital?
Election observer missions have identified some of the flaws they observed during the conduct of the 2019 presidential and National Assembly elections. The missions, which include ECOWAS, Commonwealth, the African Union and the European Union, however, commended the process.
No security challenges.
For members of the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room, over 260 politically motivated deaths have been recorded and documented between the commencement of campaigns in October last year and the actual election day on February the 23rd, 2019. Those formed part of the preliminary report of the group following the conduct of the 2019 presidential election. President Muhammadu Buhari has won his re-election bid as he polled over 15 million votes to defeat his closest rival, Alhaji ATIKU Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party, in the presidential poll conducted on February 23. Alhaji ATIKU polled over 11 million votes. This is according to the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, after he collated figures of votes from all the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. Meanwhile, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji ATIKU Abubakar, has rejected the result of the election. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, the former vice president accused the ruling All Progressives Congress of stealing the mandate of the people, using what he described as statistical impossibilities.
In Akwa Ibom, for instance, the results showed a statistical impossibility of a 62% drop in voter numbers from the 2015 elections, even where voter registration and PVC collection rates were much higher than in 2015.
Nevertheless, President Muhammadu Buhari and his vice, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, have received certificate of return from the election management body. Both of them were accompanied by their wives to the presentation, which was done by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC). Speaking after the presentation, President Buhari promised an all-inclusive government devoid of impunity.
I wish Mr. Chairman to congratulate all the presidential candidates and their teams on a hard-fought campaign. We may have had different views during the campaign, but the one thing most of us have in common is love of our country and our desire to improve conditions for Nigerians.
The Court of Appeal has reserved judgment to a date that would be communicated to parties in the appeals filed by suspended Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen, against the decision of the Code of Conduct Tribunal. Justice Onnoghen is challenging the jurisdiction of the tribunal to hear the charge against him, being a serving judicial officer. He is also challenging the decision of the tribunal to hear all pending applications together, including his application challenging the jurisdiction of the tribunal to entertain the suit. Also, he is challenging the veracity of the ex parte order directing him to vacate office as Chief Justice of Nigeria. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has reserved judgment in an appeal filed by the Cross River State government over the suspension of Justice ONNOGHEN. In the appeal, the Cross River State government is asking the court to invoke its powers as a court of original jurisdiction to decide whether the president acted in line with the Constitution to suspend Justice ONNOGHEN. However, the presiding judge, Justice Bode Rhodes Vivo, said the case is a constitutional matter which requires time for a careful examination of the issues raised. The matter was adjourned to May 17, 2019. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, wants resident electoral commissioners to correct the mistakes observed during the presidential election for a smooth conduct for the governorship and state assembly elections. He was speaking when he met with commissioners ahead of the conduct of the March 9th election.
There will be governorship elections in 29 states, and in all the states of the Federation, there will be state assembly elections. And in the Federal Capital Territory, where the area council elections coincide with the general elections, we are also conducting elections into 68 constituencies, made up of 6 area council chairmen and 62 councillors.
The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, says the federal government will implement the new minimum wage of 30,000 naira. Addressing reporters in his office, Mr. Mustafa stated that the government was committed to the implementation, despite the increase from 27,000 to 30,000 naira by the House of Representatives.
We have made adequate provision in the 2019 budget. So whatever comes, we have kind of been futuristic in capturing it and making sure that that is passed. We mean well for the good of the workers of Nigeria. For him to come as a president and decide that, look, we need to give the working class a wage that is reasonable. And look at where we took it from 18,000 as minimum wage, as a benchmark to some, to what is before the House of Representatives now is 30,000. Though our recommendation was 27,000, but what is before the House of Representatives is 30,000. Whatever comes out of it, I can tell you that this president has sufficient capital in terms of his integrity to honor whatever the Nigerian people decide.
Former military head of state and chairman of the National Peace Committee, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, Bishop Matthew Kuka, and other members of the National Peace Committee met with the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. The meeting was held behind closed doors. The meeting is part of efforts to douse the tension that trailed the outcome of the 2019 presidential election. The committee also met with President Muhammadu Buhari. The chairman of the committee, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, spoke to State House correspondents after the meeting and says they have presented the grievances and observations of the PDP candidate to the president.
We are here today to see His Excellency the President in order to relay the fears and the concern of the PDP. And Mr. President has listened to us, and he's also taken note of what we have told him. On behalf of this country and all of us, regardless, we need peace. This country is very, very important to all of us. We are not talking about self-interest. We are talking about the interests of the country. I'm glad that the PDP are saying they are going to court to challenge this process. I think this is the right way to go about it. He did not give condition, he gave his complaints.
President Muhammadu Buhari says the next 4 years will be tough, as his administration will pursue its campaign promises of securing the nation, growing the economy, and fighting corruption. President Buhari made the remarks during a special meeting of the Federal Executive Council at the council chambers.
Our last lap, or my last lap of 4 years, I think it's going to be tough because people are very forgetful. That was why wherever I went, I reminded them of the campaign by my party or by our party of the 3 fundamental issues.